Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. Wait, does the video recording count as a mirror? Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Candyman, which is coming to theaters on August 27th, 2021. So, Candyman is Jordan Peele's reimagining of the classic horror film. It has a really fresh take on the old film and also has a lot of very interesting, updates to it. We'll talk a little bit about the film. We'll talk about three things I liked, three things I didn't like, and then talk about the ending. So, as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about it, if you don't want to, know what happens in the film, then turn this off, go watch the movie, then come back. Or you can check out the review on watcherpass.com. It's much more vague. There's no spoilers in it, so you can get a feel for the movie and see if you want to see it. But spoiler alert, you're gonna want to see this movie. It's pretty good. So Candyman, it takes place in I think the project's in Chicago, and it takes place in this neighborhood Cabrini-Green, where there's been a string of whispered murders in the area. There's always this kind of like urban legend about this killer that comes out if you say his name in a mirror, and so it's kind of haunted this neighborhood. It's kind of haunted this neighborhood, for a while now, and so, but through all of this, the neighborhood is also kind of gentrified, and as a lot of neighborhoods have, it's kind of become more upscale. It's become more built up, more high rises, and so enter Anthony, who is an artist, and his partner Brianna, who is kind of a museum curator, and they are living in a nice upscale apartment condo in the city. But early on, Anthony kind of has a run-in with this urban legend, this Candyman urban legend, and it leads him down a rabbit hole where he really becomes kind of obsessed with this killer and this story. It's actually, strangely, the story is brought up by his partner's brother, Troy, and this causes Anthony to then kind of become a little obsessive about the legend and create a whole installation art piece about it, which, as you would imagine, if you bring up this legend and kind of tell people about it, Candyman starts to show up. So and so then the film kind of goes into, then we kind of deal with having this killer on the loose, but also there's some very strange, interesting parallels between things that are happening to Tony and things that are kind of happening that are characteristic of the Candyman legend. So do you want to know why? Well, let's go find out. So the first thing I really love about this film is the style, and this film has a lot of Jordan Peele's kind of characteristic trademark style. It has really good music, it has really good visuals, it has very kind of smart cinematography and smart visual imagery, and so the film Candyman kind of exists in a mirror. Like you summon Candyman by calling him in a mirror, and so this film has a lot of mirror imagery, as you imagine. In fact, the whole opening sequence has all the logos in the mirror images. It was good because I thought originally, oh, is there something wrong with my screener? But it fits with the idea. And that also goes on to the early shots of the film, where you have kind of upside down looking buildings like they're in a mirror, and you have a lot of beehive kind of imagery as well. So this film is dripping with style from the start, and then also that translates into the music, and then some of the other really cool aspects. I really loved, there's this kind of like paper puppet type style that's used to tell some of the backstory of the Candyman legend, and that is a very it's a very smart way to do it, because I assume it's not as expensive, but it's also very stylish, and it really gives it kind of an old legend feel. Like it feels like the type of thing that you would see almost in like medieval times, and they're talking about like past legend, past stories and fables and things like that. You would see these types of puppet shows, and so it really gives this Candyman legend a classic feel to it. The next thing I really liked are the horror elements, and that's, this film is first and foremost a horror film, although for my next point, you'll see that there's a lot more going on than just the horror elements in this film. And but the horror elements themselves are very strong. You've got really good practical effects, you've got a really good slow build up, you get a lot of time to kind of learn about the Candyman legend, and you get some unsettling hints at the start that then eventually, when the first kill happens, then you get to the more brutal elements of the story. But the film itself is first and foremost a horror film, and it's a good horror film. It's one that will can keep you entertained and also give you plenty of brutality. The third thing I really love is this. There's a social justice message, and I imagine this is probably from Jordan Peele and his screenplay. It feels like something that he's emphasized in his previous movies. But I really like how it bolted that on to kind of this Candyman story. And so I have to admit, I haven't seen the original Candyman, so I know shame on me. I should have seen it at this point. But so I'm not sure if the original Candyman had a social justice type message. But you know, I think that this is a stronger message, and it's a much more vocal message, which I liked. I love when horror tells other stories, other viewpoints, tries to kind of relay something more than just the pure horror entertainment factor, and kind of teaches as it entertains. And Candyman is no different. There's a really good through line of the injustices that have happened to Black neighborhoods, Black individuals, just kind of the social norm that it has become, and has kind of gone unchecked for a long time. And that is very vocal and very kind of prominent in Candyman, which was it was a nice surprise, because I wasn't expecting that aspect of it. So things I didn't love about the film. So the first is kind of the rules of the killer. So Candyman's legend is pretty straightforward. You say his name 5 times in the mirror and he shows up to kill you. So I don't know why anyone really want to say it, but people do a lot of weird stuff on social media these days. So I guess, it's not a surprise. But so that happens multiple times, but sometimes it's very quick, sometimes it's very slow. And then towards the end, and I'll go into this in the ending, those rules get kind of blurred, and it didn't feel like there was a coherent set. It felt like there was a convenient set. There was like this baseline way to summon him, but then that kind of gets changed for the convenience of the story and the underlying message. The second thing I didn't really love is that some of the social justice, messaging, iconography, it didn't really fit with the horror side of this. And I know I just praised it because I do really love that, the film had that message. It put that first and foremost, and then also used the horror elements to kind of sneak that in. I really do love when films use horror to educate or entertain, or at least present different viewpoints, and this does that as well. But I think the end result, kind of the film's ending, caused some of the social justice aspects to be emphasized and the horror elements to be de-emphasized. And that's mostly because in the end, when someone summons Candyman, he becomes this kind of this anti-hero, this this lethal avenger at the end, which is kind of where this was barreling to. But it didn't fit with the previous things that had happened, the previous kills that had happened. It didn't fit with any of that framework that we had been led to believe. It felt like maybe some of the social justice message should have been more uniform throughout. Maybe some of the earlier kills, Candyman should have done something a little differently, because towards the end he becomes this kind of lethal avenger. And the last thing I didn't really love is, I did like the story and I liked the buildup and everything kind of that was used to tell it, but the story itself was a little confusing and I don't really feel like it explored everything. And might also go back to the previous criticisms. It feels like the rules of Candyman were kind of adjusted for specific instances and things like that. And that also goes with kind of the story. The story has all these past kills and killers, and I wasn't 100% sure if they were all just other events that had then been attributed to this urban legend, or if we were led to believe that maybe Candyman has evolved over time. And this could just be because maybe I have to watch the movie a second time, but it didn't feel like the story really fully meshed together, and some of the background wasn't fully fleshed out and wasn't explained when we find out more about what happened, especially for this specific killer lady who kind of went crazy. But I don't know, we find out later that maybe she didn't. So now I'm going to go into the ending, and I guess the fourth thing, this kind of fits with everything, is the ending. I feel like the ending itself was a little bit of a letdown. It felt like maybe the ending was kind of barreling towards a specific outcome, and kind of bent some of the rules and bent some of the things that we'd learned in order to get to that outcome. And to be fair, the ending was exciting. Had revelations, it had surprise, but it didn't feel like it was fully explained, or it didn't feel like it at least was kind of the culmination of what we learned before. So I'm going to go to the ending. Warning, spoilers, 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 spoilers. There will be a lot of spoilers because I'm going to the ending. So, uh, so Tony is an artist, and after his exhibit where he, kind of had a Candyman installation where he was encouraging people to say his name. Again, a weird, installation for an artist. But hey, you know what? I don't really understand art. Maybe it was useful to someone, and apparently it was useful to Candyman because he starts appearing after that. So after that, Tony gets stung by a bee in his right arm or right hand, which then starts to get worse. It starts to kind of blister and fester. And during this, he also starts seeing Candyman in the mirror. Now, Tony summoned Candyman. He said the name 5 times early on, and that's when Candyman started appearing. But Candyman doesn't kill him like he does, many other people that summon him. Candyman kind of pursues Tony, and keeps showing up in the mirror and like smiling at him and kind of surprising him, but never actually attacking him. But as this is happening, Tony becomes more obsessed with the legend, and he starts painting the Candyman vessels. He has these really like they're actually very impressive. He has these very impressive portraits of past Candyman vessels that have this really frantic, dark style. That it's really striking, and it's really impressive to see when you kind of first are shown it. And then we find out that it turns out that Tony was actually born in this neighborhood, even though he said that he had grown up somewhere else. He had grown up somewhere else, but we all find out, including Tony didn't know this, that he was born in Cabrini, and that he, had grown up, or at least he had lived there until he left and was raised in, I forget the neighborhood, but something south, like some other, I guess maybe he was raised in some other neighborhood. It was something south. And then we also find out that it seems like Candyman actually killed Tony's mom. So, what we find out is that Candyman, for some reason, fixated on Tony as a baby and actually wanted to kind of make him one of his victims, which again, I don't understand, because, the rules are pretty clear, and I don't really think a baby could look in a mirror and say the rules. But I guess maybe Candyman wanted him to be, I don't know, a successor, to be like the next iteration of Candyman. It seems like maybe Candyman goes from, one vessel to the next over time, and it wanted Tony to be the next vessel. And so he tries to pull Tony into this fire, but his mom pulls him out, gives him to some other lady, and then goes in and fights, the Candyman monster, and I guess ends up killing him, or at least, silencing him for now. And then everyone in the area makes a vow to not say his name again, because they don't want this to happen. And again, this is an interesting idea, and it was kind of a surprise revelation. But according to what we already learned, Tony's mother had done some pretty awful things. Like, she had apparently killed like a dog and made like a snow angel out of its blood, and then killed multiple other people, and then kidnapped Tony. Although I guess maybe that was all urban legend, and that was all kind of bluster from what the actual legend was. I think that's what the implication was. But there were some very specific topics that were brought up. So, I guess maybe that those were all just embellishments to the story, but it wasn't fully fleshed out. So in any event, we also find out that someone who had been kind of guiding Tony in the Candyman journey, someone who knew about the old legend and was telling him more about it, his name was William. He was kind of, I think, the owner of this laundromat nearby. His sister, I think, actually played the Candyman game, and then Candyman came and killed her, and that's where William, I think, originally saw Candyman. And this I think awakened this interest in Candyman, this kind of desire to bring forth the legend that then becomes realized later, as we find out. So after we kind of find this out, William then kidnaps Tony's girlfriend and brings her to this church where I think Candyman was originally born. It was some sort of church that had burned down before. And it seems like William wants to revive Candyman, bring him back in, but maybe use him to fight some injustices. I couldn't really follow exactly. There was a little bit of confusion here, but it seems like William wants to use Candyman and kind of like reignite the legend in order to kind of either just push people back into the shadows, like make people afraid again of the legend so that they would stop doing stuff, I guess, or maybe kind of revive the legend, and I guess maybe cause people to fear Candyman again, to maybe check some other actions again. I think that's kind of what the idea was. But in doing this, he then kind of fully transforms Tony into Candyman, which he was already looking pretty bad. He had like a the bee sting had kind of gone up his arm and like was starting to kind of affect his face, and so he was getting this kind of like burned look, also this kind of almost beehive look, with like holes that look kind of like how a beehive's like a cross section of a beehive would look. And so then William cuts off Tony's arm and sticks the hook in. And Tony seems pretty complacent here. He actually, gives the hand and allows William to cut it and then puts the stick in. But during this time, Brianna, who is in the church tied up, uses a pen or a knife to cut herself free and escape. And she runs. And William pursues, and you get this really well done, tense scene where she's in this kind of dark tunnel and she's using her cell phone light, but she has to turn it off because she sees another light. It's really well done. And eventually, William catches up to her, but she manages to get away and hides in this building. And then when William comes in to look for her, she stabs him a lot, but she's afraid. Like he kidnapped her. He mutilated her boyfriend or partner in front of her. So I guess it makes sense that she's afraid, but she kills him. So then after this, Tony shows up and he looks really like Candyman. Like he, apparently he's essentially just fully transformed. Like maybe there aren't as many bees around him, but he is fully into the Candyman legend. And he collapses. During this, or after he collapses, the police show up I think they might be in the church then, or they're at least in the side. I think they're in the side building. And this is because William had called the cops because he wanted them to come and use them to ignite the legend and then to kind of spread the name of Candyman. So the cops barge in, and even though William is collapsed on the ground, at least one of them, I think a couple of them, shoot him, even though he's clearly not a threat. He's on the ground. They shoot him anyways, and then they take Brianna out into this car, and one of the cops tries to kind of convince her to change her story. He basically is like, look, there's two versions of the story, and one of them will be good for you. And so he tries to convince her to change her story, and she goes, essentially like, let me look at myself in the mirror and then I'll do whatever you want. And the cop's kind of like, what? He's like, let me look at myself in the mirror and I'll do whatever you want. So the cop, points the mirror at her, his rear view mirror at her, and she summons Candyman. But this instance, this is where the kind of the disconnect was, because normally Candyman would then attack her and kill her. But in this instance, Candyman comes and slaughters the cops that previously had killed him. So I guess he enacts justice on them, I guess, in the movie, or at least he gets his revenge. Maybe justice is the wrong word. He gets his revenge because they had killed him, and then they were also kind of threatening his partner. Although at this point he's fully transformed into Candyman, so I don't know where Tony ended and where Candyman began. But in any event, he murders like all the cops there. So again, it's weird because I don't I don't know if there was criteria for this transformation or what, but now he has become more of like a lethal avenger versus before when he was a boogeyman, someone that would, prey on unsuspecting people who ended up calling him. Now he is like, a different kind of boogeyman. He's like a lethal avenger, and he um, frees Brianna, I guess. He murders everyone. Although I imagine there's probably a lot of questions when, all the cops are slain except for her. That might not look good for her when the next batch of cops comes around, but she's at least free for now. She asks who he is, and he says something very stylized. I didn't catch everything, but it was something like, I'm, the darkness. I'm like the smell of fresh blood. I kill all these people, and they'll say that they're innocent, but they were not. It's something along those lines, like essentially saying like I'm, the darkness, but I only kill those who are not innocent. So then after he kills everyone, he kind of then fully transforms into Candyman. There's like bees swarming around his head. He's actually like levitating, which this must be an homage to the old movie, because it felt a little silly looking. Like it didn't look as scary as Candyman in the mirror, Candyman that kind of appear everywhere. He looked almost like a superhero at this point, which felt a little weird, But he essentially says, to tell everyone, what happened. And then that's the movie. But during the credits, there's some really, really fantastic end scenes that you should definitely stay for. They're actually through the whole credits, and it's like this paper craft style storytelling of the past Candyman legends. I think these are the previous instances of the Candyman legend, and it kind of shows how these previous individuals were all just kind of victims of injustice. And then I think the underlying message is that then the urban legends built it up into this Candyman force, which then eventually now is realized in Tony. But that does take a couple leaps, and it does kind of require you to come to that conclusion. I'm not sure if that's right. That's kind of how I'm interpreting it. But in any event, the actual storytelling elements in the credits are really good. They're very well done. It's kind of amazing what they can evoke from just this kind of simple puppetry and without really any sound or anything. It's so well done, and so kind of it's very powerful. I kind of wish that there was more of that, because it's such a powerful way to tell these stories. But so that's Candyman. Like I said, it has a really good style. It's got interesting characters that I didn't really touch on, but they are interesting as well. It has good horror elements and a great social justice message. It's just the story itself didn't really come together for me. In the ending, kind of felt disconnected from all the elements that I'd learned before. But that could just be, maybe I need to watch it again and kind of pay closer attention to them on the second watch. So I still think it's something you should watch. It's a Jordan Peele film. It's very stylish. It's very well done. It has a lot of really great elements, a lot of good horror elements. So it's still something I think you should check out. So that's Candyman. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I was completely off base in my explanation. If I missed things in the ending, just let me know. I love talking about the films after, and I definitely learn from talking after the review. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.